good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are, wherever you are. You are watching another edition of Affordable Model Railroads. You asked for it. Once again, I'm James. I'm your host, if you want to call me that. And we got our videographer, Ian, behind the camera there. And today what we are going to show you how to do is to shorten up a typical turnout. There may be times when you may need a specific frog angle, but the turnout is just too long for the area that you want to put it. So we're gonna show you how to shorten those up so you can keep your frog angle, but you can fit it into a tighter space. All right, we've had a couple people ask us. It's like, James, you guys seem really good. Your layouts look like they're built really good, but your videos are all kind of hokey and unprofessional. And all I got to say about that is, I'm a model railroader. I am not a video producer. So if you want a really good video, go hire Steven Spielberg. If you want a really good railroad, then hire us at Affordable Model Railroads. So that being said, why would you ever want to cut down to turnout? Say factory makes it, number 8 is supposed to be number 8 turnout, so that's the way it's supposed to be. Well, not necessarily. The number 8 refers to the angle of the diverging track of the turnout. And typically, from the frog to the points, they're all the same no matter what manufacturer. This distance here is virtually the same, as accurate as they are in manufacturing it to get the proper angle. However, different manufacturers have different lengths on these leads. Now, we happen to be working with the Pico Streamlined American Style Code 83 HO track. Walters, quite a bit longer. Atlas, quite a bit shorter. So you may want to fit a number 8 in, but you just don't quite have the space, but you need the angle, such as for a yard here. And before we get into that, there's really only 3 tools you need. Track clippers, some masking tape, or you could use a pen or pencil. I prefer using masking tape, and some cutters. And also you might want to have a file handy so that you can kind of clean up the edges of the cuts. But we figure that you all know how to file, so I'm not going to go through that today. That would be whole nother video if you don't know how to file. Okay, we have a yard here that's laid out, and the customer was running wanted to run a lot of passenger trains, so he wanted to run them through the larger number 8 turnouts rather than the shorter number 6. You can see how much shorter number 6 is, but most notably you can see how the distance between the points and the frog on these, the angle is much wider. It makes it much easier for your larger cars, your larger locomotives, your steam locomotives to go through here because it's not as tight of an angle, so you get less chance of derailing in theory on these number 8s than on the slightly smaller number 6s. But we had some space constraints in the length of his yard, and so originally when it was designed for number 6s, as you can see when we laid the number 8s in here, yeah, we can kind of fudge that first one and get it to lay. The second one comes off a little bit. By the time we get to the third one, it's really off track here. So this is a case where you might want to move your turnouts back, and then that way you can fudge them back a little bit here. And we'll fudge that one back there, so the diverging route will follow that roadbed. Pull him back here, and pull him back here. We say, well, James, how's your train going to get over all those humps? Well, we're going to cut those humps out of there, and we're going to cut those tracks, make them shorter, so that you can make into these nice broad curves here with a number 8 frog instead of the small derailing prone number 6s. So the first thing you want to do is look at your switch and see how it's constructed. These are insul frogs, and so what that means is your frog is completely insulated here electrically, and these Picos happen to have jumpers on the back so that your electricity will continue to flow from here, jump over the frog to this side. Same thing, come through here, jump over the frog to this side. So you can only cut this back as far as those jumpers go, because you don't want to cut those jumpers out of there, otherwise you'll lose the electricity there. And also if you cut that far back, your frog is liable to fall apart. So you look at this here and I say, okay, I can cut out, I want to leave these two ties here, just so I don't get too close to the frog and don't have it falling apart on me. So I just flip it over and I take my track nippers, or you could take a razor saw, cut through there, razor blade and cut it. Just be sure you don't cut your track. At this point, all you're cutting is the plastic tie strip. And after you've done this a couple of times, you'll get the feel of it and know how deep you can go without cutting your track. Then you want to lay this down on a flat surface, and then you can take this and you can peel it up. Make sure you hold that frog in there tight so the rails don't bend, and peel that guy up out of his tie strips. Okay, now this is one thing you have to be careful of with the Pico turnouts. They don't necessarily solder that down good in there, so you may have to put that back in there and resolder that jumper. So, alright, so now you have just extended rail out here. On the other side, you have your points. You have your the guide rails here for your throw bar in the middle. And you have this little spring that's in the Picos, and that spring is so that if you're not using a turnout motor, if you're using a hand throw, you can get a nice solid click over there, and your rails will stay up against the power rail where you want it. So you don't want to interfere with that. So I want to cut my tie strip after this kind of mechanism here. So you cut your tie strip out there. Get your nippers in there. And again, don't cut your rail at this point. And again, just pop that off. And save these, because you'll end up having to use extra ties to fill in the gaps when you get these together. Okay, so you do this with a couple of these. Alright, so now you can bring these back here, and we're getting closer. But you can see we still have a lot of rail here that we can work with. So what I want to do here is I want to leave at least the length of half of a rail joiner, so that when you put your rail joiners on there, you can connect the two tracks together. So I'm going to go back here, and I want to cut this about a half a rail joiner from that tie, and do the same with the other track, and try to get them as parallel as you can there. And now you can see we've cut that way back, and we're getting real close to being able to match these guys up. So I'm going to cut these back. When you cut these divergings, don't just cut straight across here. Make sure you're parallel to the track itself. So as you can see, these kind of bend out. So let me demonstrate here, I guess, with this tape. I don't know if you can zoom in and see that good enough, but as you can see, if you just tape it parallel across, this guy and this guy will be parallel to each other, but this one and this one, see how this one is at an angle, so it's actually going to not connect properly because it's actually going to be kind of set back a little bit. What you want to do is you want to make sure that those guys on the diverging route here are parallel to each other. Or I guess technically it would be perpendicular to each other. So now if you offset that a little bit, you can see now the two rails where the ends are going to be the same length. So you're going to match this angle.